At precisely 0347 hours on September 10, 2022, military analysts worldwide witnessed Ukraine's forces execute what experts now recognize as the template for modern Thunder Run operations. Ukrainian mechanized units punched 80 kilometers through Russian lines in the Kharkiv region, collapsing an entire defensive network and liberating over 8,000 square kilometers in just days. The operation defied conventional military wisdom about breakthrough tactics, yet it worked with devastating effectiveness. By the time international observers could process what had happened, the largest European territorial gains since World War II had been achieved through a tactic first perfected in Iraq 2 decades earlier. This wasn't just another tactical victory. It demonstrated how Thunder Runs have evolved from their 2003 origins into the defining assault method of 2025 warfare. The anatomy of modern Thunder Runs. What transforms a standard armored assault into the tactical phenomenon that has reshaped warfare? The answer lies in understanding how Thunder Runs have evolved from desperate gambles into precision instruments of strategic warfare. At its core, a Thunder Run represents a rapid armored thrust deep into enemy rear areas designed to create shock and disrupt defensive networks. The attacking force abandons traditional concepts of secure flanks and supply lines, instead gambling everything on speed and momentum to achieve objectives that conventional attacks could never reach. The original Thunder Run concept emerged during the 2003 Iraq invasion when the U.S. Army's 3rd Infantry Division's 2nd Brigade executed a high-speed convoy attack straight into Baghdad. Using M1A1 Abrams tanks and M2 Bradley fighting vehicles, this operation aimed to shock and demoralize Iraqi forces while seizing key strategic objectives like the airport and Saddam Hussein's palaces. The tactic worked through pure audacity and overwhelming firepower, but operators essentially went blind once they crossed the line of departure. Modern Thunder Runs have layered sophisticated intelligence systems onto this foundation. The 2022 Ukrainian breakthrough in Kharkiv demonstrated how contemporary operations integrate real-time battlefield intelligence with adaptive tactical systems. Ukrainian forces utilized Bayraktar TB2 drone swarms to scout potential routes and identify threats before their main mechanized units encountered them. HIMARS precision strikes, guided by detailed intelligence, systematically eliminated Russian command posts and supply nodes ahead of the advancing formations. This technological evolution converted what was essentially a controlled stampede into a surgical strike capable of threading through defensive networks. Understanding the core components reveals why modern Thunder Runs have become so devastatingly effective. Speed remains the foundational element, with formations now sustaining high velocities across rough terrain while maintaining tactical coordination through advanced communication systems. Armor protection has evolved beyond simple steel plating to include active defense systems that intercept incoming threats and reactive armor that defeats shaped charges. Reconnaissance by fire has expanded to include electronic probing, where sensors identify enemy positions without alerting defenders to reconnaissance activities. Psychological warfare has become perhaps the most sophisticated component. Operations now coordinate with information warfare specialists who flood enemy communication networks with reports of advancing forces, often exaggerating their size and capabilities. Social media channels broadcast real-time footage of Thunder Run vehicles smashing through defensive positions, creating panic among reserve forces who begin abandoning positions before attacks even reach them. The psychological impact multiplies the tactical effect, causing enemy formations to collapse before they can mount effective resistance. The balance between extreme risk and strategic rewards has shifted dramatically. While Thunder Runs remain inherently dangerous operations, technological advances have reduced casualty rates while increasing potential for breakthrough success. The Ukrainian Kharkiv operation achieved in days what traditional tactics would have required months to accomplish, liberating over 8,000 square kilometers through rapid penetration that collapsed an entire defensive network. Current Thunder Run formations utilize vehicle types specifically designed for high-speed penetration missions. The backbone consists of main battle tanks equipped with systems that provide both extreme acceleration and extended operational range. Infantry fighting vehicles carry specialized teams trained to secure captured objectives rapidly. Self-propelled artillery systems provide continuous fire support while maintaining pace with advancing formations. Electronic warfare vehicles jam enemy communications and provide countermeasures against incoming guided weapons. The stakes involved cannot be overstated. A failed Thunder run typically results in destruction of the entire attacking force, as units that penetrate deep into enemy territory without achieving objectives find themselves surrounded and cut off from support. Equipment losses extend far beyond immediate tactical impact, as modern Thunder run vehicles represent advanced technology that cannot be quickly replaced. The psychological impact of failed operations can persist for months, as surviving personnel and supporting units lose confidence in the tactic's effectiveness. The success of the Kharkiv operation has inspired increased adoption of Thunder run tactics across multiple theaters. Military forces have recognized that rapid territorial gains provide strategic advantages that justify the inherent risks. The frequency of attempts has created a feedback loop where successful operations inspire similar attempts by other forces, while technological improvements reduce barriers to execution. Perhaps most significantly, the integration of reconnaissance systems with rapid assault formations has fundamentally altered how these operations unfold. Where 2003 Thunder runs operated with limited battlefield awareness, once committed, modern operations maintain continuous intelligence flow throughout their execution. This technological foundation has transformed Thunder runs from blind charges into precisely guided operations that can adapt to changing tactical situations. The evolution from Baghdad 2003 to Kharkiv 2022 demonstrates how layering advanced surveillance and precision strike capabilities onto the basic Thunder run concept creates exponentially more effective results. Yet this technological sophistication introduces new complexities and vulnerabilities that commanders must navigate. The question becomes whether these intelligence advantages can be maintained when facing opponents equipped with equally sophisticated counter-surveillance capabilities. Digital eyes in the sky. Modern Thunder runs operate under a comprehensive surveillance umbrella that Ukrainian forces first demonstrated during their 2022 Kharkiv counteroffensive. Real-time satellite imagery and civilian drone networks provided Ukrainian commanders with detailed intelligence about Russian defensive positions, enabling them to identify weak points in enemy lines and exploit gaps that traditional reconnaissance might have missed. This integration of commercial satellite data with tactical drone reconnaissance eliminated the intelligence void that characterized earlier Thunder run operations, transforming blind charges into precisely guided strikes. Ukrainian forces utilized readily available civilian drones to scout routes ahead of their mechanized formations, creating a dynamic reconnaissance network that could adapt to changing battlefield conditions. These drones identified Russian supply convoys, ammunition storage locations, and defensive positions in real time, allowing Ukrainian commanders to adjust their advance routes to avoid prepared kill zones while exploiting vulnerabilities in enemy lines. The ability to observe Russian forces repositioning their defenses provided Ukrainian planners with tactical advantages that proved decisive during the rapid 80-kilometer advance through Kharkiv region. The sophistication of Ukrainian drone reconnaissance extended beyond simple surveillance operations. Advanced models carried electronic warfare packages that identified Russian communication frequencies and located radar installations through passive sensors. Some variants deployed miniaturized ground sensors along potential advance routes, creating early warning networks that detected Russian movement hours before visual contact occurred. This technological integration transformed Thunder run planning from educated guesswork into precise tactical engineering based on current battlefield intelligence. Satellite intelligence networks provided Ukrainian forces with continuous coverage rather than the periodic snapshots that characterize intelligence gathering in previous conflicts. Commercial satellite providers offered military-grade imagery with resolution capabilities that could distinguish between different vehicle types from orbital altitude. Ukrainian military planners could observe Russian supply convoys, identify ammunition storage locations, and track the movement of reserve forces as their mechanized formations advanced toward objectives. This constant overhead surveillance eliminated the fundamental vulnerability of rapid penetration warfare that had characterized earlier Thunder run operations. Integration of these orbital assets with ground-based intelligence systems created what analysts describe as a seamless information environment. Ukrainian Thunder run commanders received updates through encrypted data links that displayed Russian positions overlaid on digital terrain maps, allowing tactical decisions based on current rather than historical intelligence. The Kharkiv breakthrough demonstrates this capability perfectly, as satellite imagery identified gaps in Russian defensive lines that enabled Ukrainian commanders to redirect their formations toward these vulnerabilities. Real-time intelligence prevented multiple tactical disasters throughout the Kharkiv operation, with documented cases where satellite imagery identified Russian preparations just minutes before Ukrainian formations would have driven into prepared kill zones. Overhead surveillance detected Russian forces repositioning anti-tank guided missile systems along planned advance routes, providing Ukrainian commanders with intelligence updates that allowed them to redirect formations through alternative routes and avoid catastrophic losses. This operation succeeded because intelligence updates reached tactical commanders faster than Russian forces could adapt their defensive positions. The Ukrainian integration of signals intelligence and electronic warfare capabilities provided additional advantages during their Thunder Run operations. Ukrainian forces utilized sophisticated monitoring equipment to intercept Russian communications and identify command posts, artillery positions, and supply networks. This signals intelligence integration allowed Ukrainian commanders to coordinate precision strikes against Russian command and control nodes while their mechanized formations maintained momentum through enemy defensive lines. Electronic warfare specialists disrupted Russian communication networks, preventing coordinated defensive responses that might have stopped the Ukrainian advance. Ukrainian forces demonstrated how modern Thunder Run operations could exploit the intelligence advantages provided by commercial satellite networks and civilian drone technology. The ability to observe Russian defensive preparations in real time allowed Ukrainian planners to identify the optimal timing for their breakthrough attempt. When Russian forces appeared to be rotating units or repositioning equipment, Ukrainian commanders could launch their Thunder Run operations to exploit these moments of vulnerability. This tactical flexibility fundamentally changed how these operations unfold, allowing formations to flow like water toward the path of least resistance. The success of Ukrainian intelligence integration during the Kharkiv operation has inspired military forces worldwide to reconsider how Thunder Run tactics might be enhanced through similar technological capabilities. The demonstration that commercially available satellite imagery and civilian drone networks could provide military-grade intelligence has lowered barriers to executing these high-risk operations. Military planners now recognize that the intelligence advantages demonstrated in Ukraine could be replicated in other theaters, potentially making Thunder Run tactics more viable for forces that previously lacked sophisticated reconnaissance capabilities. Despite these technological advantages, the Ukrainian experience also revealed persistent vulnerabilities in intelligence-dependent Thunder Run operations. Russian electronic warfare capabilities successfully disrupted some Ukrainian drone operations and satellite communication links, forcing commanders to rely on traditional reconnaissance methods while maintaining operational tempo. The ongoing technological competition between surveillance systems and counter-surveillance capabilities continues to shape how these operations develop, with both sides constantly adapting their methods to maintain tactical advantages. The intelligence revolution demonstrated during the Kharkiv operation has fundamentally altered the risk-reward calculation for Thunder Run operations. Where these tactics once represented desperate gambles with uncertain outcomes, the integration of real-time intelligence systems has transformed them into calculated strategic weapons. Yet the effectiveness of these intelligence advantages depends entirely on the survivability of the vehicles executing these high-speed penetrations, as even perfect intelligence cannot guarantee success if the attacking force lacks the protection systems necessary to reach their objectives. Armor evolution and survivability. The technological sophistication of modern armor systems has fundamentally transformed the survivability equation for Thunder Run operations. During the 2003 Iraq invasion, the U.S. Army's 3rd Infantry Division demonstrated remarkable resilience during their Thunder Run into Baghdad, with only one M1 Abrams tank destroyed by enemy fire and one lost to friendly fire throughout the entire operation. The M2 Bradley fighting vehicles accompanying these formations proved equally durable, with most surviving direct hits from rocket-propelled grenades and improvised explosive devices. This early success established the foundation for understanding how properly protected vehicles could sustain momentum through concentrated enemy fire. The evolution from passive armor protection to active defense systems represents the most significant advancement in vehicle survivability since composite armor development. Modern Thunder Run vehicles now incorporate active protection systems that detect incoming projectiles through radar and optical sensors, then launch interceptor charges that destroy threats in mid-flight. These systems operate in milliseconds, engaging multiple simultaneous threats while prioritizing the most dangerous based on trajectory analysis and warhead identification. The psychological impact on enemy forces proves almost as valuable as the physical protection, as anti-tank teams watch their weapons explode harmlessly meters from their intended targets. Ukrainian forces demonstrated how tactical adaptation could enhance armor survivability during their 2022 Kharkiv breakthrough. Rather than relying solely on vehicle protection, Ukrainian commanders utilized TB2 drone swarms to identify and eliminate anti-tank positions before their mechanized formations encountered them. This approach reduced armor vulnerability by removing threats from a battlefield rather than simply surviving their attacks. The integration of precision strikes with armored advances created a layered protection system that combined technological superiority with tactical innovation. The arms race between armor technology and anti-tank weapons continues to drive innovation cycles measured in months rather than years. Modern anti-tank guided missiles incorporate multiple attack modes specifically designed to overwhelm active protection systems, including top attack profiles that exploit typically weaker roof armor. Meanwhile, armor manufacturers respond with enhanced sensor coverage, faster interceptor deployment, and improved threat discrimination algorithms. This technological competition ensures that no single protection system maintains dominance for extended periods. Modular armor systems have revolutionized battlefield maintenance and operational sustainability for Thunder Run operations. These systems allow maintenance crews to replace damaged armor sections within hours rather than days, keeping vehicles operational throughout extended campaigns. The modular approach treats armor protection like replaceable components with standardized mounting systems that enable rapid field installation. Combat engineers can now perform armor repairs under battlefield conditions using portable equipment and prefabricated modules, proving crucial for maintaining Thunder Run momentum. The psychological warfare element of improved armor survivability multiplies tactical effectiveness beyond physical protection capabilities. Intelligence intercepts document enemy communications describing demoralization that spreads through defensive positions when anti-tank teams report successful hits that result in no visible damage to attacking vehicles. The sight of armored vehicles continuing their advance despite multiple direct hits creates a perception of invincibility that often proves more decisive than the actual protection systems themselves. New threats have emerged specifically designed to counter these armor advances, creating an escalating technological competition. Enemy forces now deploy weapon systems that combine multiple attack methods simultaneously, overwhelming active protection systems through coordinated salvos from different directions. Electronic warfare attacks target the sensors and computers that enable active protection, attempting to blind or confuse defensive systems at critical moments. Some adversaries have developed tactics that exploit reload time between active protection intercepts, timing follow-up attacks to arrive during brief vulnerability windows. The strategic implications of improved armor survivability extend beyond individual operations to influence broader military doctrine and force structure decisions. The lessons learned from the 2003 Baghdad Thunder Run regarding vehicle abandonment procedures and crew survival have been refined through technological advancement and tactical evolution. Modern formations can now expect higher survival rates while maintaining the aggressive momentum that makes Thunder Run tactics effective. Military commanders have become significantly more willing to authorize Thunder Run operations based on improved survivability statistics and proven tactical effectiveness. The combination of enhanced protection systems, better intelligence integration, and refined tactical procedures has transformed these operations from desperate gambles into calculated strategic weapons. This increased confidence in Thunder Run capabilities has led directly to more frequent employment of the tactic across multiple theaters. The economic calculation has shifted in favor of high-technology protection systems as the cost of advanced armor proves less than the expense of replacing destroyed vehicles and training new crews. Military planners increasingly view Thunder Run capability as a strategic asset rather than a tactical desperation measure, fundamentally altering how they approach both offensive and defensive operations. The survivability improvements demonstrated from Iraq 2003 through Ukraine 2022 have established a clear trajectory toward even more sophisticated protection systems. These technological and tactical advances have created the conditions necessary for increasingly ambitious Thunder Run operations. The combination of enhanced armor protection, real-time intelligence systems, and proven tactical procedures has established the foundation for operations that would have been impossible just 2 decades ago. As military forces continue to refine these capabilities, the potential for breakthrough operations that can achieve strategic objectives in compressed timeframes continues to expand, setting the stage for operations that push the boundaries of what the March 15th breakthrough. The September 2022 Kharkiv counteroffensive demonstrated how these technological capabilities could achieve breakthrough results that redefined modern warfare expectations. Ukrainian forces executed what military analysts now recognize as the most successful Thunder Run operation since the 2003 Baghdad assault, punching 80 kilometers through Russian defensive lines in just 2 days. The operation began on September 8th when Ukrainian mechanized formations identified weaknesses in Russian positions that had appeared static for months. Intelligence preparation utilizing commercial satellite imagery and civilian drone networks revealed gaps in enemy coverage that traditional reconnaissance might have missed entirely. The tactical decisions that enabled the Kharkiv breakthrough reflected months of careful preparation combined with opportunistic exploitation of developing intelligence. Ukrainian commanders maintained maximum operational tempo despite encountering prepared Russian defensive positions, choosing to bypass strongpoints rather than engage them directly. This approach preserved both momentum and combat strength, while leaving Russian forces positioned to defend against attacks that never materialized. The formation's ability to flow around obstacles rather than fight through them proved decisive in maintaining the speed necessary for Thunder Run's success. Russian defensive preparations encountered during the operation reflected standard defensive doctrine, but failed to account for the speed and adaptability of Ukrainian formations. Intelligence gathered after the breakthrough revealed that Russian forces had prepared layered defenses incorporating traditional anti-tank positions and electronic warfare capabilities. Russian commanders had positioned mobile reserve forces at strategic locations and established multiple fallback positions along likely Ukrainian advance routes. Despite these preparations, the speed of the Ukrainian advance prevented effective coordination of defensive responses, as communication networks struggled to track formations moving faster than anticipated. The psychological impact of the Ukrainian advance proved as devastating as the physical penetration itself. Russian defensive positions began collapsing before Ukrainian forces even reached them, as reports of the breakthrough spread through enemy communication networks faster than commanders could verify the information. Intercepted communications revealed Russian units abandoning prepared positions based on rumors of Ukrainian forces approaching, creating cascading failures throughout the defensive network. The sight of Ukrainian armored vehicles appearing in locations that should have been impossible to reach so quickly shattered Russian confidence in their defensive preparations. Technological integration provided Ukrainian forces with decisive advantages throughout the operation. Drone reconnaissance operating ahead of mechanized formations identified Russian positions and relayed targeting data for precision artillery strikes that cleared obstacles before the main force encountered them. Real-time satellite imagery enabled Ukrainian commanders to observe Russian troop movements and adjust their advance routes to exploit developing vulnerabilities. Electronic warfare capabilities disrupted Russian communications while protecting Ukrainian networks from similar attacks, creating information superiority that multiplied tactical advantages. The 80-kilometer penetration required solving logistical challenges that had historically limited Thunder Run effectiveness. Ukrainian supply systems adapted to support high-speed operations across extended distances, with fuel and ammunition resupply coordinated to match the formation's pace. Combat engineers addressed obstacles that could have stopped the advance, using portable equipment to maintain momentum across varied terrain. Maintenance procedures accommodated battlefield damage without requiring the formation to halt, treating mechanical issues as routine problems rather than mission-ending failures. Strategic objectives captured during the Kharkiv operation included the vital transportation hub of Izium and numerous smaller settlements that anchored Russian defensive networks throughout the region. Ukrainian forces reached these objectives before Russian commanders could implement destruction protocols, capturing intact equipment and intelligence materials. The speed of the advance prevented Russian forces from conducting organized withdrawals, resulting in the abandonment of significant military assets and prepared defensive positions. The operation's broader impact extended far beyond immediate territorial gains achieved during the two-day breakthrough. Russian forces in adjacent sectors began withdrawing from prepared positions rather than risk being cut off by similar Ukrainian operations. The demonstration of Ukrainian Thunder Run capabilities against prepared defenses forced Russian commanders to revise their defensive doctrines, allocating resources to counter threats they had previously considered manageable. Intelligence gathered from abandoned Russian positions revealed operational plans that enabled follow-up operations exploiting known vulnerabilities. Ukrainian integration of commercial technology with military operations during the Kharkiv breakthrough established new benchmarks for Thunder Run effectiveness. The ability to coordinate drone reconnaissance, satellite imagery, and precision strikes created tactical advantages that previous operations could never achieve. This technological integration transformed Thunder Run tactics from desperate gambles into calculated strategic weapons capable of achieving objectives that conventional attacks could never reach. The psychological warfare elements proved equally significant in the operation's success. Ukrainian forces coordinated information operations that amplified the perceived threat of their advance, creating panic among Russian reserve forces who began abandoning positions before Ukrainian formations reached them. Social media channels broadcast footage of Ukrainian vehicles advancing through liberated territory, reinforcing the narrative of Russian defensive collapse and Ukrainian momentum. The Kharkiv operation liberated over 8,000 square kilometers in what became the largest European territorial gains since World War II. The breakthrough fundamentally shifted the strategic balance across the entire theater by proving that prepared defensive lines could be penetrated and strategic objectives captured faster than enemy forces could respond. The success triggered reassessment of Thunder Run capabilities by military forces worldwide, leading to increased investment in both offensive systems and defensive countermeasures. This single operation established Thunder Run tactics as viable strategic weapons rather than desperate tactical expedients, inspiring military planners to reconsider how rapid penetration warfare might be employed in future conflicts. The technological integration demonstrated during the Kharkiv breakthrough created a template for similar operations, showing how commercial technology could enhance military capabilities without requiring specialized equipment. Yet the operation's very success has also prompted development of countermeasures specifically designed to prevent similar breakthroughs, as military forces worldwide study both the tactics employed and the vulnerabilities they reveal. Lessons from failed Thunder Runs. Understanding these vulnerabilities requires examining the inherent risks that have always defined Thunder Run operations, regardless of technological advancement. The tactic carries extreme danger by design, as formations abandon secure supply lines and flanks to achieve rapid penetration through enemy territory. This fundamental risk became tragically apparent during the 1995 Battle of Grozny, when Russian forces attempted a rapid assault into the Chechen capital. The operation collapsed within hours as Chechen fighters used urban terrain to neutralize Russian advantages, destroying entire columns of vehicles in prepared ambush positions. The failure demonstrated how Thunder Run tactics could transform from strategic weapons into catastrophic disasters when encountering determined resistance in favorable defensive terrain. The contrast between Grozny 1995 and Baghdad 2003 illustrates the narrow margin between Thunder Run's success and failure. Russian forces in Grozny faced urban defenders who understood their terrain intimately and had prepared coordinated defensive positions throughout the city. Chechen fighters allowed Russian columns to penetrate deep into urban areas before activating ambush positions that trapped the advancing vehicles in kill zones with limited escape routes. The psychological impact proved as devastating as the physical destruction, as surviving Russian personnel lost confidence in rapid assault tactics for years afterward. The 2003 Baghdad Thunder Run succeeded where Grozny failed primarily due to different defensive preparations and terrain conditions. Iraqi forces lacked the coordinated defensive network that Chechen fighters had established throughout Grozny, allowing American formations to maintain momentum through enemy territory. The open terrain surrounding Baghdad provided multiple route options that prevented Iraqi forces from channeling American vehicles into prepared ambush positions. Most critically, Iraqi defensive positions operated independently rather than as coordinated networks, enabling American forces to bypass strongpoints without becoming trapped in extended engagements. Supply line vulnerabilities represent the fundamental weakness that no technological advancement has fully addressed. Thunder Run formations must carry sufficient fuel and ammunition to complete their missions without resupply, as their rapid advance typically outpaces conventional logistics networks. When formations encounter unexpected resistance or mechanical failures, they can find themselves stranded deep in enemy territory with insufficient resources to continue their mission or conduct fighting withdrawals. The August 2022 Russian assault on Kyiv demonstrated this vulnerability, as Russian columns advancing toward the capital became isolated when Ukrainian forces interdicted their supply lines. The Russian approach to Kyiv revealed how overconfidence in rapid assault tactics could lead to strategic disasters. Russian commanders appeared to believe that Ukrainian resistance would collapse quickly once their formations reached the capital, similar to successful operations in other conflicts. Instead, Ukrainian forces used urban terrain and coordinated defensive positions to slow Russian advances while targeting their extended supply lines. The failure to capture Kyiv within the expected time frame allowed Ukraine to mobilize international support and establish strategic momentum that fundamentally altered the conflict's trajectory. Enemy adaptation has consistently proven the most dangerous threat to Thunder Run effectiveness. Defensive forces study successful operations and develop specific countermeasures designed to exploit tactical vulnerabilities. The Chechen experience in Grozny provided a template for urban defensive tactics that has influenced military thinking worldwide. Defenders learned to allow rapid assault formations to penetrate deep into urban areas before activating coordinated ambush positions that trapped attacking vehicles in predetermined kill zones. Intelligence failures compound the risks inherent in Thunder Run operations, as formations operating at high speed have limited time to gather and process battlefield information. The 1995 Grozny assault suffered from fundamental misunderstanding of Chechen defensive preparations and capabilities. Russian commanders underestimated both the determination of Chechen fighters and their tactical sophistication in preparing urban defensive positions. Similar intelligence failures contributed to the Russian difficulties around Kyiv, where Ukrainian defensive capabilities and coordination exceeded Russian expectations. Mechanical failures become exponentially more dangerous during Thunder Run operations, as disabled vehicles deep in enemy territory cannot be easily recovered or repaired. Formations must either abandon disabled equipment or risk additional casualties attempting recovery operations. The high operational tempo of Thunder Run tactics places extreme stress on vehicle systems, increasing the likelihood of mechanical problems at critical moments. Combat engineers accompanying these operations must solve maintenance problems under fire while maintaining formation momentum. The psychological dimension of Thunder Run failures extends far beyond immediate tactical consequences. Failed operations provide enemy forces with detailed intelligence about capabilities, tactics, and equipment that would remain classified under normal circumstances. Captured personnel possess knowledge of planning procedures, communication systems, and tactical decision-making processes that enable enemy forces to develop more effective countermeasures. The propaganda value of destroyed Thunder Run formations often exceeds their tactical significance, as images of burning advanced vehicles demonstrate that technological superiority cannot guarantee success. Training and doctrine development has evolved to acknowledge these persistent vulnerabilities while maintaining Thunder Run capabilities. Military forces now conduct extensive risk assessments that account for enemy adaptation, supply line security, and communication vulnerabilities. The lessons learned from both successful operations like Baghdad 2003 and failures like Grozny 1995 have created more realistic planning procedures that balance aggressive tactics with operational security. The technological sophistication of modern Thunder Run operations has created new categories of vulnerability that commanders must navigate. Advanced communication systems and active protection technologies introduce electronic warfare considerations that previous generations of Thunder Run planners never faced. These systems require continuous power, maintenance, and technical support that may not be available during extended operations in enemy territory. The increasing complexity of Thunder Run operations has created dependencies on technological systems that can become critical failure points when targeted by sophisticated enemy countermeasures. The electronic warfare dimension. Electronic warfare capabilities have emerged as a critical component of modern Thunder Run effectiveness, operating alongside the physical battlefield to determine operational success. The integration of electronic countermeasures with rapid assault tactics became particularly evident during Ukraine's 2022 Kharkiv counteroffensive, where Ukrainian forces successfully coordinated counter-electronic warfare efforts with precision strike systems to suppress Russian defensive networks. Ukrainian operators utilized sophisticated electronic warfare techniques to protect their HIMARS rocket systems and TB2 drone operations from Russian jamming attempts, creating the electromagnetic conditions necessary for their breakthrough operations to succeed. The Ukrainian approach demonstrated how electronic warfare integration could multiply the effectiveness of conventional Thunder Run tactics. By suppressing Russian communication networks and radar systems, Ukrainian forces created information gaps that prevented coordinated defensive responses to their rapid advance. TB2 drones operated under electronic warfare protection that shielded their control links from Russian jamming systems, enabling continuous reconnaissance and target acquisition throughout the 80-kilometer penetration. HIMARS precision strikes coordinated through protected communication networks eliminated Russian command posts and artillery positions that might have disrupted the Ukrainian advance. Russian electronic warfare capabilities, despite their sophistication, proved insufficient to counter the integrated Ukrainian approach during the Kharkiv operation. Russian jamming systems designed to disrupt individual weapon systems encountered Ukrainian countermeasures that protected multiple platforms simultaneously through coordinated electronic defense networks. The failure of Russian electronic warfare to prevent Ukrainian precision strikes and drone operations contributed directly to the collapse of their defensive positions throughout the region. The electromagnetic dimension of Thunder Run operations creates vulnerabilities that extend beyond traditional battlefield considerations. Modern formations depend on electronic systems for navigation, communication, and coordination, making them susceptible to jamming and cyber attacks that can disable entire capabilities without physical damage. Communication networks that enable real-time intelligence sharing become critical vulnerabilities when targeted by sophisticated electronic warfare systems. Navigation systems essential for maintaining formation integrity can be disrupted through GPS jamming or spoofing attacks that redirect vehicles away from their intended routes. Thunder Run formations now incorporate electronic warfare specialists who operate alongside traditional combat arms personnel to maintain electromagnetic superiority throughout their operations. These specialists deploy jamming systems that target enemy communication networks while protecting friendly signals through frequency management and encryption protocols. Counter-electronic warfare equipment shields Thunder Run vehicles from enemy jamming attempts while maintaining the communication links necessary for coordinated tactical operations. The speed and complexity of electronic warfare engagements often exceed human reaction times, forcing Thunder Run planners to develop automated countermeasures that can respond to electronic attacks faster than manual intervention allows. Electronic warfare systems now incorporate artificial intelligence algorithms that can identify jamming patterns and implement countermeasures within milliseconds of detecting electronic attacks. These automated systems enable Thunder Run formations to maintain communication capability even when facing sophisticated electronic warfare operations designed to disrupt their coordination. Backup communication systems provide essential redundancy for Thunder Run operations when primary electronic networks suffer attack or failure. Analog radio systems operating on different technical principles than digital communications can maintain basic voice contact even in heavily jammed electromagnetic environments. Visual signaling procedures and predetermined rally points enable formations to continue their missions when electronic communication becomes impossible. These backup procedures ensure that Thunder Run operations can adapt to electronic warfare conditions without losing tactical effectiveness. The electromagnetic battlefield has become so critical to Thunder Run's success that electronic warfare considerations now influence route planning, timing decisions, and formation arrangements as much as traditional tactical factors. Mission planners evaluate enemy electronic warfare capabilities alongside conventional defensive positions when developing Thunder Run operations. Communication security requirements affect vehicle spacing, movement patterns, and coordination procedures to minimize electromagnetic vulnerabilities while maintaining operational tempo. Electronic warfare effectiveness often determines whether Thunder Run operations achieve their strategic objectives or suffer catastrophic failure. Formations that maintain communication. Superiority can coordinate complex tactical maneuvers while adapting to changing battlefield conditions in real time. Operations that lose electronic warfare superiority find themselves operating blind, unable to coordinate responses to enemy actions or adapt to unexpected obstacles. The electromagnetic dimension has transformed Thunder Run tactics from purely physical operations into complex technological competitions where electronic superiority often proves more decisive than conventional firepower. The integration of electronic warfare capabilities with Thunder Run operations has created new categories of tactical vulnerability that commanders must navigate throughout their missions. Advanced electronic systems require continuous power, maintenance, and technical support that may not be available during extended operations in contested electromagnetic environments. System interdependencies mean that electronic warfare attacks can create cascading failures that degrade multiple capabilities simultaneously, potentially transforming successful operations into tactical disasters within minutes. The technological sophistication of modern electronic warfare systems has accelerated the competition between attack and defense capabilities, creating rapid innovation cycles where new countermeasures generate corresponding countermeasures within months of deployment. Electronic warfare specialists continuously analyze enemy jamming techniques to develop more sophisticated protection systems, while adversaries study captured equipment to create more effective attack methods. This technological competition ensures that electronic warfare capabilities remain in constant flux, requiring Thunder Run planners to account for rapidly evolving electromagnetic threats. The success of Ukrainian electronic warfare integration during the Kharkiv breakthrough has inspired military forces worldwide to reconsider how electromagnetic capabilities might enhance Thunder Run effectiveness. The demonstration that coordinated electronic warfare operations could protect precision strike systems and drone reconnaissance while suppressing enemy defenses has established new benchmarks for Thunder Run planning. Yet, this technological sophistication has also revealed how electronic warfare failures can transform tactical advantages into strategic vulnerabilities, creating psychological pressures that extend far beyond psychological warfare and morale collapse. These electromagnetic vulnerabilities create conditions where psychological factors often determine Thunder Run outcomes more decisively than technological capabilities or tactical execution. The core objective of Thunder Run operations extends beyond physical penetration to inflict significant psychological blows that collapse enemy morale and resistance. This psychological dimension became strikingly evident during Ukraine's 2022 Kharkiv counteroffensive, where the rapid advance of Ukrainian forces employing Thunder Run principles shattered Russian defensive lines and triggered widespread retreat across the entire region. The speed and audacity inherent in Thunder Run operations creates panic responses that spread through enemy formations faster than the attacking vehicles themselves can advance. Ukrainian forces during the Kharkiv breakthrough demonstrated how psychological impact could multiply tactical effectiveness, as Russian units began abandoning prepared positions before Ukrainian formations physically reached them. Intelligence gathered after the operation revealed that many Russian defensive positions were evacuated based on reports of Ukrainian advances occurring dozens of kilometers away from their actual locations. The psychological warfare component of Thunder Run operations exploits fundamental human tendencies to overestimate distant threats, particularly when those threats move at speeds that exceed normal battlefield expectations. The human brain struggles to process armored formations advancing at highway speeds across terrain that conventional military doctrine suggests should slow attacking forces to walking speeds. This cognitive disconnect creates systematic errors in threat assessment that Thunder Run operations deliberately exploit to achieve psychological effects disproportionate to their actual physical capabilities. Ukrainian Thunder Run tactics during the Kharkiv operation sowed panic among Russian defenders through the demonstration of overwhelming momentum that appeared unstoppable once initiated. Russian communication intercepts revealed widespread confusion about Ukrainian force sizes and locations, with individual units reporting contact with formations that were actually operating in completely different sectors. The psychological contagion spread through Russian communication networks as reports of Ukrainian breakthroughs created cascading failures in defensive coordination across the entire theater. The tendency of enemy units to abandon positions during Thunder Run operations represents a direct result of psychological pressure rather than tactical necessity. During the Kharkiv counteroffensive, Russian forces left behind significant quantities of equipment and supplies while conducting hasty withdrawals from positions that had never experienced direct attack. Post-operation analysis revealed that many abandoned Russian positions could have continued effective resistance if their personnel had maintained psychological cohesion rather than succumbing to panic responses triggered by distant Thunder Run operations. Information warfare elements amplify Thunder Run's psychological effects by flooding enemy communication networks with reports that confirm worst-case scenarios about attacking force capabilities. Ukrainian operations coordinated psychological warfare campaigns that deliberately exaggerated the scope and speed of their advances, creating information environments where Russian commanders received multiple conflicting reports about Ukrainian positions and intentions. This information overload forced Russian decision-makers to base tactical choices on incomplete or inaccurate intelligence, often resulting in premature withdrawals from defensible positions. The viral nature of modern communication systems multiplies Thunder Run's psychological impact far beyond immediate tactical zones. Reports of Ukrainian breakthrough operations reached Russian personnel across the entire theater within hours of initial penetration, affecting morale in sectors that had no direct connection to the actual fighting. The psychological pressure created by successful Thunder Run operations influences enemy planning decisions across entire command structures, as personnel interpret breakthrough successes as indicators of their own vulnerability, regardless of actual tactical circumstances in their specific defensive sectors. Combat stress researchers have documented how Thunder Run operations create unique psychological pressures that exceed traditional battlefield stress responses. The combination of high-speed movement, penetration into enemy rear areas, and abandonment of secure supply lines creates psychological conditions that affect both attacking and defending forces in ways that conventional military operations cannot replicate. Enemy forces facing Thunder Run attacks report difficulty maintaining rational tactical decision-making processes. When confronted with armored formations operating at speeds and in locations that violate conventional military expectations, Thunder Run formations deliberately maximize psychological impact through tactical decisions that prioritize visible success over pure tactical efficiency. Ukrainian commanders during the Kharkiv operation selected routes that maximized exposure to Russian observation posts, ensuring that their breakthrough operations received maximum visibility among enemy personnel. The psychological warfare effect multiplied as Russian forces observed Ukrainian vehicles operating in areas that should have been impossible to reach, creating perceptions of tactical invincibility that proved more decisive than actual combat engagements. The psychological dimension of Thunder Run effectiveness has inspired enemy forces to develop specialized resilience training programs designed to counter the unique psychological pressures created by rapid penetration operations. Intelligence reports indicate that military units receiving psychological resilience training demonstrate improved performance when confronting Thunder Run attacks, suggesting that psychological countermeasures may reduce the tactic's effectiveness in future applications. However, the fundamental human psychological responses to high-speed armored attacks remain difficult to overcome through training alone. Media coverage of Thunder Run operations serves dual purposes by documenting tactical success while simultaneously conducting psychological warfare against enemy forces monitoring news reports. The rapid dissemination of footage showing Thunder Run vehicles penetrating defensive positions creates immediate psychological pressure that affects ongoing tactical decisions in adjacent sectors. Combat journalists equipped with satellite communication systems provide coverage that reaches enemy personnel through both official channels and social media platforms, creating psychological effects that extend far beyond the immediate battle area. As military analysts observed during the Kharkiv breakthrough, the tide of war turned slowly, then all at once, with Russian defensive collapse accelerating beyond all tactical predictions once psychological momentum shifted decisively in Ukraine's favor. This psychological transformation has established Thunder Run operations as psychological weapons capable of achieving strategic effects through tactical actions, inspiring military forces worldwide to examine how similar psychological advantages might be replicated across different operational environments and cultural contexts. Global Thunder Run theaters. The examination of these psychological mechanisms reveals how Thunder Run effectiveness depends fundamentally on the specific operational environment where these tactics are employed. The documented success of the 2003 Baghdad Thunder Run and the 2022 Kharkiv breakthrough demonstrates that geographical, cultural, and logistical factors determine whether rapid penetration operations achieve their strategic objectives or suffer catastrophic failure. Geographical factors play the most decisive role in Thunder Run effectiveness, with terrain characteristics directly influencing both tactical execution and operational outcomes. The 2003 Baghdad operation benefited from relatively flat desert terrain that enabled sustained high-speed movement across open ground, allowing American formations to maintain momentum while minimizing exposure to defensive fire. The highway networks leading into Baghdad provided multiple route options that prevented Iraqi forces from concentrating their defensive efforts at predictable choke points. Urban areas within Baghdad itself presented challenges, but the city's wide boulevards and planned street networks accommodated armored vehicle movement better than the narrow, winding streets that characterize many Middle Eastern cities. The 2022 Kharkiv operation succeeded partly due to similar geographical advantages, as the relatively flat terrain of eastern Ukraine enabled Ukrainian mechanized formations to sustain rapid movement across agricultural areas and through small towns. The region's road network provided sufficient route options to prevent Russian forces from establishing effective defensive positions at natural choke points. Ukrainian commanders exploited these geographical advantages by selecting advance routes that maximize their speed while minimizing exposure to prepared Russian defensive positions. Climate conditions significantly affect Thunder Run execution, as demonstrated by the seasonal timing of successful operations. The 2003 Baghdad Thunder Run occurred during spring weather conditions that provided optimal visibility and vehicle performance, while avoiding the extreme summer heat that would have created additional logistical challenges. The 2022 Kharkiv breakthrough began in early autumn when ground conditions remained firm enough to support cross-country vehicle movement, yet before winter weather could impede operations or reduce visibility. Cultural and political factors create operational environments that influence Thunder Run effectiveness through their impact on local population support and enemy morale. The 2003 Baghdad operation initially benefited from Iraqi military demoralization and limited civilian resistance, enabling American forces to maintain operational tempo without significant interference from non-combatants. However, the subsequent insurgency demonstrated how cultural factors could undermine long-term strategic objectives even when initial Thunder Run operations achieved tactical success. Ukrainian forces during the 2022 Kharkiv operation operated in regions where local populations generally supported their advance, providing intelligence about Russian positions while avoiding actions that might impede Ukrainian movement. This cultural support multiplied the psychological impact of the Ukrainian breakthrough, as Russian forces found themselves operating in increasingly hostile territory where civilian cooperation enhanced Ukrainian tactical advantages. Logistical challenges represent the most persistent limitation on Thunder Run effectiveness across all operational environments. The 2003 Baghdad operation required extensive logistical preparation to ensure that advancing formations maintained sufficient fuel and ammunition to complete their missions without resupply. American forces addressed these challenges through careful prepositioning of supplies and coordination with follow-on logistics units that could maintain supply lines to rapidly advancing formations. The 2022 Ukrainian operation demonstrated how modern Thunder Run tactics could reduce logistical vulnerabilities through technological integration. Ukrainian forces utilized precision strikes to eliminate Russian supply depots and command posts, reducing enemy resistance while conserving their own ammunition. Real-time intelligence enabled Ukrainian commanders to identify and exploit Russian supply vulnerabilities, creating tactical advantages that reduce the logistical burden on their own advancing formations. Different military doctrines approach Thunder Run integration through varying philosophical frameworks that reflect national strategic cultures and available resources. American military doctrine emphasizes technological superiority and overwhelming firepower, resulting in Thunder Run operations that rely on advanced equipment and sophisticated coordination systems. The 2003 Baghdad operation exemplified this approach, utilizing state-of-the-art vehicles and communication systems to achieve breakthrough effects through technological dominance. Ukrainian military doctrine during the 2022 Kharkiv operation demonstrated how smaller military forces could achieve Thunder Run effectiveness through tactical innovation rather than technological superiority. Ukrainian commanders integrated commercially available technology with conventional military equipment, creating capabilities that rivaled more sophisticated systems while requiring fewer resources. This approach enabled Ukrainian forces to execute successful Thunder Run operations despite lacking the advanced equipment that characterized American operations in Iraq. The success of both the 2003 Baghdad and 2022 Kharkiv operations has influenced military planning decisions worldwide as nations evaluate their geographical conditions and available resources when considering Thunder Run capability development. Military forces operating in mountainous regions face fundamentally different challenges than those in flat terrain, while nations with limited defense budgets must develop alternative approaches to achieve similar tactical effects. Arctic and desert environments present extreme challenges that require specialized equipment and modified tactical procedures to accommodate environmental conditions. The limited infrastructure in remote regions creates additional logistical complications that can transform Thunder Run operations from calculated risks into desperate gambles. These environmental factors have led military planners to recognize that Thunder Run tactics cannot be universally applied across all operational environments without significant adaptation. The proliferation of Thunder Run attempts across different theaters has generated valuable data about how local conditions affect operational outcomes, yet this tactical evolution has also revealed the enormous financial investments required to maintain these capabilities. The technological sophistication demonstrated in successful operations demands resources that extend far beyond traditional military budgets, creating economic pressures that fundamentally influence how military forces approach rapid penetration warfare. The economics of modern Thunder Runs. These resource limitations have forced military planners to confront fundamental questions about how Thunder Run capabilities can be sustained and developed in an era where tactical effectiveness increasingly depends on technological sophistication. The documented success of both the 2003 Baghdad operation and the 2022 Kharkiv breakthrough demonstrates that Thunder Run tactics achieve strategic results through specific combinations of speed, protection, and intelligence integration that require careful resource allocation and planning. The 2003 Baghdad Thunder Run succeeded partly because American forces could deploy overwhelming technological advantages against Iraqi defensive systems that lacked comparable sophistication. The M1A1 Abrams tanks and M2 Bradley fighting vehicles utilized in the operation represented mature technologies that had been refined through decades of development and testing. The relatively straightforward technological requirements enabled American commanders to focus on tactical execution rather than equipment reliability concerns. Ukrainian forces during the 2022 Kharkiv operation achieved similar results through innovative integration of available resources rather than overwhelming technological superiority. Ukrainian commanders combined conventional armor vehicles with commercial drone systems and precision-guided munitions to create capabilities that rivaled more sophisticated military systems. This approach demonstrated how tactical innovation could compensate for resource limitations while maintaining Thunder Run effectiveness. The contrast between American and Ukrainian approaches reveals different pathways for developing Thunder Run capabilities based on available resources and strategic requirements. Military forces with extensive defense budgets can pursue technological solutions that maximize individual platform capabilities, while resource-constrained forces must emphasize tactical innovation and efficient integration of available systems. Both approaches have proven effective under appropriate circumstances, suggesting that Thunder Run tactics can adapt to different resource environments. Training requirements represent another significant resource consideration for Thunder Run capability development. The 2003 Baghdad operation required extensive preparation periods where American personnel practiced coordination procedures and equipment operation under simulated combat conditions. This training investment proved essential for operational success, as Thunder Run tactics demand precise coordination between multiple vehicle types operating at high speeds across varied terrain. Ukrainian forces demonstrated how training requirements could be compressed through focused preparation on specific tactical scenarios rather than comprehensive Thunder Run doctrine development. Ukrainian personnel concentrated on mastering the integration of drone reconnaissance with armored vehicle operations, creating specialized capabilities that proved decisive during the Kharkiv breakthrough. This targeted training approach enabled Ukrainian forces to develop effective Thunder Run capabilities within compressed time frames. Maintenance and logistics support create ongoing resource requirements that extend far beyond initial equipment procurement decisions. The 2003 Baghdad Thunder Run required extensive logistical preparation to ensure that advancing formations maintained operational capability throughout their mission. American forces addressed these challenges through careful prepositioning of supplies and coordination with follow-on logistics units that could maintain supply lines to rapidly advancing formations. The 2022 Ukrainian operation demonstrated how logistical requirements could be reduced through tactical approaches that minimized resource consumption while maintaining operational effectiveness. Ukrainian forces utilized precision strikes to eliminate enemy supply depots and command posts, reducing resistance while conserving their own ammunition and fuel supplies. This approach enabled Ukrainian formations to sustain operations across extended distances without requiring the extensive logistical support that characterized earlier Thunder Run operations. Intelligence gathering and processing capabilities represent critical resource requirements that determine Thunder Run operational effectiveness. The technological sophistication demonstrated during the Ukrainian Kharkiv operation required integration of multiple intelligence sources, including satellite imagery, drone reconnaissance, and signals intelligence. These capabilities demand specialized personnel, equipment, and communication systems that create ongoing resource obligations for military forces seeking to maintain Thunder Run capabilities. The success of documented Thunder Run operations has inspired military forces worldwide to evaluate their resource allocation priorities when considering rapid penetration warfare capabilities. The demonstration that Thunder Run tactics can achieve strategic objectives through tactical actions has led to increased investment in the technologies and training programs necessary to execute these operations effectively. Resource allocation decisions increasingly influence how military forces approach Thunder Run capability development, with different nations pursuing varying strategies based on their strategic requirements and available resources. Some military forces emphasize technological solutions that maximize individual platform capabilities, while others focus on tactical innovation and efficient integration of available systems. These different approaches reflect broader strategic cultures and resource constraints that shape military doctrine development. The proliferation of Thunder Run attempts across different theaters has generated valuable data about resource requirements and operational effectiveness. Yet this tactical evolution has also revealed the substantial investments necessary to maintain these capabilities over extended periods. Military forces must balance the strategic advantages provided by Thunder Run capabilities against the ongoing resource commitments required to sustain operational readiness. The documented effectiveness of Thunder Run operations from Baghdad 2003 through Kharkiv 2022 has established these tactics as proven strategic weapons rather than experimental military concepts. This validation has influenced resource allocation decisions across multiple military organizations as commanders recognize the strategic value of maintaining rapid penetration warfare capabilities. Yet the specific resource requirements continue to evolve as technological advancement creates new possibilities for Thunder Run effectiveness while simultaneously increasing the complexity and cost of maintaining these capabilities. The strategic implications of these resource considerations extend beyond immediate tactical applications to influence broader military doctrine and force structure decisions. As military forces continue to refine their understanding of Thunder Run requirements and capabilities, the tactical innovations demonstrated in recent operations will likely inspire further developments that could fundamentally alter how these operate. Future evolution and strategic implications. Military strategists examining the documented evolution from Baghdad 2003 to Kharkiv 2022 recognize that Thunder Run tactics have reached a critical juncture where technological advancement and tactical innovation must balance against emerging defensive countermeasures. The success of Ukrainian forces in achieving the largest European territorial gains since World War II through rapid penetration warfare has validated Thunder Run effectiveness while simultaneously inspiring adversaries to develop specific countermeasures designed to neutralize these advantages. The arms race between Thunder Run capabilities and anti-Thunder Run defensive systems continues to accelerate, with military forces worldwide investing in both offensive and defensive technologies. Enemy forces have begun developing directed energy weapons specifically calibrated to disable Thunder Run electronic systems, area-denial munitions that create persistent hazards over extended periods, and network sensor systems that can track Thunder Run movements across continental distances. Some defensive innovations focus on cyber warfare capabilities designed to penetrate Thunder Run communication networks and corrupt tactical data in real time during operations. Advanced defensive concepts under development include electromagnetic pulse weapons that can disable entire Thunder Run formations through targeted electronic attacks, and adaptive minefields that can reconfigure themselves based on detected Thunder Run approach routes. Military engineers are creating autonomous hunter-killer systems designed to pursue Thunder Run formations through difficult terrain where traditional anti-tank weapons prove ineffective. These systems use artificial intelligence to predict Thunder Run movement patterns while coordinating attacks from multiple directions simultaneously. The technological competition extends beyond individual weapon systems to encompass entire battlefield ecosystems where Thunder-run operations must function. Space-based surveillance networks provide unprecedented battlefield awareness while simultaneously serving as targets for enemy anti-satellite weapons designed to blind rapid penetration operations. Cyber warfare capabilities enable Thunder-run formations to disrupt enemy communication networks while protecting their own digital infrastructure from similar attacks, creating an invisible battlefield dimension that often proves more decisive than conventional firepower exchanges. The integration of space and cyber capabilities creates new vulnerabilities that could neutralize Thunder-run advantages through attacks on supporting infrastructure rather than direct engagement with Thunder-run formations themselves. Enemy forces might achieve strategic effects by targeting satellite communication networks, corrupting GPS navigation systems, or launching cyber attacks against the industrial infrastructure that produces Thunder-run equipment. These indirect approaches could prove more effective than traditional anti-tank weapons while avoiding the risks associated with direct military confrontation. Strategic implications for future conflict and military doctrine extend far beyond tactical considerations to encompass fundamental questions about how nations will structure their military forces and allocate defense resources. The proliferation of Thunder-run capabilities could create strategic instability as nations develop rapid penetration forces that threaten neighboring countries with operations that achieve strategic objectives faster than diplomatic intervention can prevent conflict escalation. Military doctrine development must account for scenarios where Thunder-run operations can capture vital strategic assets within hours, creating situations where traditional deterrence mechanisms prove inadequate. Future military doctrine will need to balance Thunder-run offensive capabilities with defensive systems designed to counter similar operations by adversary forces. This balance requires understanding how Thunder-run tactics integrate with broader strategic objectives, including nuclear deterrence considerations and alliance obligations that could transform localized Thunder-run operations into broader regional conflicts. Strategic planners must evaluate how Thunder-run capabilities affect crisis stability and whether these tactical advantages create incentives for preemptive military action during periods of international tension. The democratization of Thunder-run capabilities through technological developments could fundamentally alter regional power balances as smaller nations gain access to tactical capabilities previously available only to major military powers. Commercial technologies increasingly provide military-grade capabilities at civilian market prices, enabling smaller military forces to develop Thunder-run capabilities without the massive defense budgets required by current systems. The Ukrainian demonstration that commercially available satellite imagery and civilian drone networks could provide military-grade intelligence has lowered barriers to executing these high-risk operations. Smaller nations may be able to employ Thunder-run tactics through innovative integration of available resources rather than overwhelming technological superiority. The Ukrainian approach during the Kharkiv operation demonstrated how tactical innovation could compensate for resource limitations while maintaining Thunder-run effectiveness. This development could shift regional power dynamics as nations previously unable to project rapid penetration capabilities gain access to tactics that can achieve strategic objectives through tactical actions. Traditional Thunder-run tactics face potential obsolescence as defensive technologies develop countermeasures specifically designed to neutralize rapid penetration advantages. The technological sophistication that enables modern Thunder-run operations also creates dependencies that could become critical vulnerabilities when targeted by sophisticated enemy countermeasures. Military forces must prepare for scenarios where Thunder-run tactics become ineffective, requiring alternative approaches to rapid territorial acquisition and strategic objective capture. The evolution from desperate gambles to precision instruments reflects broader changes in how military forces approach high-risk operations with strategic implications. The documented success of Thunder-run operations from Baghdad through Kharkiv has established these tactics as proven strategic weapons rather than experimental military concepts. This validation has influenced military planning decisions worldwide as commanders recognize the strategic value of maintaining rapid penetration warfare capabilities. The balance between technological advancement and human tactical genius remains crucial in determining Thunder-run effectiveness across different operational environments. While technological systems provide unprecedented capabilities, the human element of tactical decision-making, adaptability, and innovation continues to determine operational outcomes. The most successful Thunder Run operations have combined technological advantages with tactical creativity and operational flexibility that enable commanders to exploit developing opportunities while adapting to unexpected challenges. The strategic transformation represented by Thunder Run evolution extends beyond tactical innovation to encompass fundamental questions about how warfare itself is changing in an era of rapid technological development and shifting geopolitical relationships. The demonstration that tactical actions can achieve strategic effects within compressed timeframes has implications that extend far beyond the specific operations where Thunder Run tactics have proven successful, influencing how military forces approach conflict, deterrence, and strategic competition in an increasingly complex global security environment. The tactical evolution documented across these operations reveals fundamental shifts in how modern warfare unfolds. Thunder Runs have transformed from desperate gambles into precision instruments that reshape strategic theaters through the integration of advanced reconnaissance and coordination systems. The 2003 Baghdad Thunder Run established the foundational concept when American forces punched through Iraqi defenses using overwhelming firepower and audacious speed, demonstrating how rapid penetration could achieve strategic objectives that conventional attacks could never reach. The September 2022 Kharkiv advance represents the tactical maturation of Thunder Run operations, where Ukrainian forces achieved the largest European territorial gains since World War II through sophisticated integration of drone reconnaissance, satellite intelligence, and precision strikes. This evolution demonstrates how enhanced intelligence gathering and real-time battlefield awareness have transformed Thunder Run tactics from blind charges into precisely guided operations capable of exploiting enemy vulnerabilities with devastating